Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
That's always a question, like distribution or product. Good enough product, great distribution, I choose every time. Ideally, it's fantastic product, fantastic distribution. But if you can only pick one to be great at, pick marketing.
What is up, friends of Millionaire University? Welcome to the Millionaire University podcast. I am your host today, Brian Guerin, and I am thrilled to be joined by our guest. His name is Ryan Sneddon, and he is making over $200,000 a year running a local newsletter business. And you may very well have heard of some of the more popular newsletters out there, such as The Morning Brew or The Hustle, which we referenced both of these a couple times in this episode. And The Morning Brew, for example, was grown and scaled and sold for over 8 figures. So the newsletter business is booming, or if it's not booming yet, it is very much climbing the mountain to being that booming type of industry. And the cool thing about Ryan is he takes a more of a local flavor to the newsletter. He bases it out of his hometown of Annapolis, Maryland. He has about half the town on his subscriber list, and he acts essentially as the local news source for Annapolis. So the great thing about this business is it's scalable. It has low overhead. The barrier to entry is not very high. And I'm so excited to have Ryan explain to us exactly how you can get this business started for yourself in your local area. So without further ado, let's welcome Ryan to the podium. Here we go. Ryan, welcome to the show. First of all, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Brian. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited because, as you know better than I, newsletter businesses can be extremely lucrative. I don't know how many of our viewers have heard of The Morning Brew, but I was looking them up. I used to be on their list years ago. But they grew, they scaled, and they eventually sold for 8 figures. So newsletters, we were just talking before we popped on air, we're not sure if they're wildly popular yet, or if not, they're definitely on their way. But the cool thing about we're going to chat about with your business, the Naptown Scoop, is you have a different spin on the newsletter business. You kind of keep it local to your hometown of Annapolis, Maryland. So I'm excited to learn exactly how you did this, how you got into it, how you've grown it, the logistics of it. So we're going to jump right in. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Yeah, a lot of people, to get to that Morning Brew level scale, they sold for like $70 million or something. The Hustle, I think, was like $25 million. They have millions and millions of subscribers. And in the case of Morning Brew, they actually had a bunch of different products. The Hustle had 2 different products. But it's really tough to get millions and millions of subscribers. And no, they're making a whole lot more than I was making, or I am making. But they were doing it with millions of subscribers. We have 19,446. And with that number of subscribers, it's my full-time income. I have 6 people that are working for us, not full-time, only one of them is full-time. But it's a much easier, more attainable number to get to than the millions of subscribers. And it's also very easy to target. That's what I liked about it. If you're going to go start a newsletter that can get millions of subscribers, where do you go to get those subscribers? I guess you can run Facebook ads and target that interest, but there's just a lot of trial and error you're going to do. If you want to start a local newsletter, you just run Facebook ads and target the people that live in your town. It's super, super easy. And I like easy things. So that's what I went with.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's not like you have to go out and set out to be the Morning Brew and think that you're going to scale and sell for 8 figures, but you can make a heck of a good living and have an awesome business model doing $250,000, like what you're doing here. And that is an incredible way to start and scale a business that doesn't have a ton of overhead, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But I kind of want to take us back to day one with you real quickly. What was the impetus for starting the Naptown Scoop and getting into the newsletter business?
So like the day one impetus, which would actually probably be more like a day 0 or day -1, was actually the email newsletter, The Hustle. Someone showed it to me and I was like, this is awesome. I was working at the time, but wanted to do my own thing. I'd always wanted to do my own thing. And so
this was 4 or 5 years ago?
This was 5 years ago now, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's kind of wild. That sounds like a long time ago. So I was working. Someone showed me The Hustle. I loved it because I loved the content that they were putting out. And the business focus of it, which was very clearly more entrepreneurial rather than just like Wall Street Journal business reading. So I love that. And then I started to love the newsletter business as I looked into it and looked into the founder of The Hustle, Sam, and all sorts of things around that. I was like, this is cool. Newsletters definitely were not a huge thing in the sense that they are now. Like Tim Ferriss had millions of people on his list. James Clear had millions of people on his list, and they were using it for great things. But the concept of a newsletter business was really still pretty new, I think. But there were some people doing it on like the big scale, like The Hustle and Morning Brew and the major ones like Agora. But then there was a really small one at the time. They had 7 of these newsletters. It was called 6 a.m. City. And they were doing what I'm doing in Columbia, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina. I was living in Columbia. Their first one had been Greenville. And I liked what they were doing from a product standpoint. Somebody at work showed it to me because they invited me to a cool new spot. And I was like, how'd you hear about this? So they said, oh, I read this newsletter. You got to check it out. And I read it for like a week and I was like, this is awesome. Let me look into the business behind this. And so I signed up for every one they had. I found out they had 7 total. Now they have about 28. So I found out that they had 7. I found out how much their advertising cost. I made a spreadsheet and I just tracked how many ads they had each day. And I was like, I think they're probably making about $500,000 per city. That sounds like a good business. Doesn't really require that many people. And then I kind of forgot about it. I started this in August of 2020, but that was probably late 2019. Then I quit that job, unrelated, just quit, wanted to do my own thing in January of 2020. Didn't have any idea what I was going to do. I messed around and didn't do anything that made any money or any traction for the next 8 months or 7 months. And then I moved from South Carolina back to Maryland, where I'm from, and I wanted to know what was going on because by August, things were starting to calm down from COVID and there were things to do again. And so I wanted to know what was going on. There was nothing telling me what was going on. And then I remembered, oh, there was that newsletter in Columbia. I wonder if there's anything like that here. There wasn't. And that's when the light bulb really went off. And it was like, I could do that. And then I was part of the Hustle's paid thing called Trends then, which told you about up and coming business ideas. And then they had a Facebook group. And that was the really valuable thing. So I wrote about the business model in the Facebook group and the post went kind of viral. As far as the Facebook group goes, there were like 3,000 members there, but it had hundreds of comments on it. And a lot of people were like, this is amazing. I'll invest in you, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so it got a lot of attention there. And again, I just kind of forgot about it. So that was July now of 2020. And then my other thing wasn't really working. I had a different newsletter that was terrible. And I think I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so that I just decided to do it. I started running Facebook ads and a week later I sent the first one. So it was kind of a little bit of a slow start, but once I actually decided to do it, I just did it in a day and ran Facebook ads for a week and then sent the first newsletter.
All right, so you mentioned Facebook ads. That sounds like that was the first way you got some of your first few subscribers. So this leads into my first question. How did you get your first 100, your first 500 subscribers?
Facebook ads. And same answer to both.
That easy?
Yeah, that easy. A lot of people want to overcomplicate it. And then they're like, how do I do this without spending a lot of money? And I'm like, you don't have to spend a lot of money. And that's how you weed out the people who are not going to do this. You're like, if you're not willing to spend $500 to test this, then you're not going to be committed enough to write an email every day or even every other day. And so that's just a really good way to weed people out of, just the, hey, that's a cool idea, but never actually going to do anything with it. To me, it just made sense. I do a lot of things that people are like, hey, that sounds really smart, or that sounds really dumb. Why'd you do it that way? And I'm like, well, it's just the way that it made sense to me. Like the way that it makes sense to me. I don't want to open up a can of worms because it kind of derailed us for almost 40 minutes before we started recording. But I've got another business, which we talked about, the portable toilet rental business. And there's just some things that I do that competitors in town are like, you can't do that. And I'm like, why not? It just makes sense to do it this way to me because I just don't see the business running any other way. Like we send an attendant with every rental for free. Then that attendant will keep it clean during the wedding. They'll replace the paper towels and the toilet paper, which would technically be the client's responsibility. We just drop it off and leave. That's not standard. I mean, everybody else they'll give you that, but you'll pay for it. It's like $70 an hour. We just throw it on for free at every rental because we want people to have an amazing experience. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me to do it any other way. So that was when I started. I was like, I need people to read this. I don't know anybody in Annapolis. I am going to run Facebook ads. That's how I know I can get people. I've seen other businesses do it. I've followed people on Twitter and seen it kind of be done. I can watch a YouTube video and figure it out. That's what I did.
Yeah, the Facebook ads, they're incredible. That was how I got into my business at Ricochet Digital. We just focused on purely Facebook ads for small businesses and just wowed business owners at the fact that you can put out an ad, everybody's on Facebook, and then the people who want to take advantage of the offer can send you their name, their email, and their phone number, and you can call them and book business. It's like, yeah, and you know what? It's the cheapest way to advertise and reach the most people. It still is today. It was 7 years ago. It still is today. $500 goes an incredibly long way.
That's something I want to challenge. I hear a lot of people like, oh, it's not the golden era of Facebook ads anymore. And they're too expensive now. And I'm like, that's nonsense. I don't know if you're allowed to swear on this podcast, but that's bullshit. That's just an excuse not to do it. If I was starting over again, and I am going to be starting over again soon, we're going to do a couple more scoops in a couple more cities. That's exactly how I'm going to do it. And yeah, maybe it's going to cost a little bit more. But at the end of the day, my Facebook ads, and based on the open rate and the amount of the dollars I could sell advertising for, and just conservatively saying that people are going to stay on the email list for a year. If I was paying up to $7 a subscriber, it was still profitable. And I never paid more than $3 an email address.
Yeah.
And that was the conservative. They're only going to stay on for a year. But this is local news. It's just like your newspaper sent through email. People stay on these things for years. We have people who have been subscribed to our local newspaper here for 50 years that are canceling their subscription there and coming to us. And now, those people are not going to stay for another 50 years because they're not going to live for another 50 years. But if we get a 30-year-old on our newsletter, they're going to read it. And as long as they live here, basically, if they're going to read it until they're 65 years old or 70 or more, because what are you just going to do? Not pay attention to the news that happens in your community? There's always going to be people paying attention to that. It's a really sticky thing, and they stay on for a very long time.
There's your recurring business model. It's like you're the new age newspaper, and you can't beat that, really. So I want to talk a little bit more about Facebook ads because this sounds like an incredible way to get this business off the ground. So your first ads, what did you use in terms of your copy and creative to hook people in and get them convinced to give you their email address?
So tried a bunch of things. That is one thing for Facebook ads is test what works. You know that because this is your whole business. But I kind of originally thought that this sort of business, this sort of publication would be cool for young people. It's like, hey, we're not the newspaper. We're nothing physical that you pick up. We're on your phone. We're on your computer. We're funny. We're hip. Like we're that. And so I ran these ads with, this is hilarious, like two really cool young people sitting at a table, looking at their phone, loving it. And it was like, this is Naptown Scoop. And then on the other side, it was a black and white picture of this grandma reading a newspaper at her table. And it said, this is traditional news. And I was like, this ad's going to be awesome. And it was fine, but it was like $5 an email address. And I was like, that's not good. And then I saw in the analytics, like young people they're like $10 a subscriber. Older people, and by older, I mean like over the age of 45, are like $2 a subscriber. And it was like, light bulb. So I stopped running that ad that made the old people look bad. And I just picked this middle-aged woman in a stock photo, not middle-aged, a little bit younger than that. She's probably like 35, 40. And it's just her. She's not even looking at her phone. She's just holding it in front of her. She's looking up and smiling. And she's really pretty. And I put a little title over it. It said, I always know what's happening in Annapolis. And then I can't remember the exact copy, but it was very similar to the Hustles ads that they were running, these morning brews ads. It was like, no nonsense, no politics, only the good stuff like that. Not groundbreaking creative or anything like that. And basically just told people the message was, this is an email that you get at the time 3 times a week, and it takes less than 5 minutes to read, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about Annapolis, and it's totally free. That was the message. And that stayed the message for the entire time that I was running ads. I spent about, I think, $25,000 on Facebook ads to get all of my subscribers. And most of that was from my own savings from the job that I had for a year before this. But then I started to sell some advertising and use that money as well. That was probably spent over a year and a half, 2 years. And I only stopped running Facebook ads because I ran out of money. And then I never started running them again. We've continued to grow at an acceptable rate. So yeah, and that was another thing. And we're jumping around a little bit here, but that was one of the things that I really liked about this business. It was kind of a thesis. I love theses for businesses. We already talked about the theses for the feces off air, which is the portable toilet rental stuff. But one of my theses for Naptown Scoop was that there's only a certain number of people who live in town here. You basically run Facebook ads really hard for a year or two, and then you just turn it off and you turn off your biggest expense and you start making profit. I was like, I think that's how it's going to be. Let's test it. That is how it's been. And so that's another thing I hear people say, well, I don't want to spend a bunch of money up front on Facebook ads. And I'm like, well, it's short-term pain for long-term gain. Spend a little bit of money and then just stop spending. I haven't run a Facebook ad in over 2 years now. That's not bad. I don't spend any money on it now. We don't spend any money on growth marketing, none other than our referral program and just having a really good product. I guess investing in content could be considered that. But in terms of running ads to get people to give us their email address, we don't do that anymore. And so, yeah, the ad creative never really changed that much. I started doing some videos in the end, and this is how I'll start doing it in other cities with the owner of the thing, putting their face in a video, just selfie style camera shot, walking around their city with a noticeable landmark in the background, explaining what it is they do at the Scoop. Those ads performed really well for us, but I ran out of money a little bit after I started running those. And then after I recovered from that, I just didn't run ads anymore because we were growing at a good rate organically. But everybody who says, I don't want to spend money on ads in the beginning, I'm like, just spend a little bit. It just bite the bullet and do it.
Get off the ground.
You don't have to spend any other money. You can do all the other work yourself. Just spend a little bit on ads. You got the greatest product in the world. Nobody knows about it. It doesn't matter. Like right now, I think we have the greatest toilet rental in Annapolis, but nobody knows about it. So it doesn't matter. We've only had 2 bookings. Now we're going to start promoting it super hard, like so hard. Like nobody's ready for how hard. But at the moment, nobody knows about it, or very few people know about it. And the people who did know about it, they booked it. But if you don't know about it, you don't know. And so that's always a question, like distribution or product. Good enough product, great distribution, I choose every time. I mean, ideally, it's fantastic product, fantastic distribution, right? But if you can only pick one to be great at, pick marketing. Is McDonald's the best burger? No, it's not. But it's marketed everywhere and everybody knows about it.
Right. Exactly. It all comes back to marketing. So when talking about bootstrapping this type of business, you got to invest a little bit in your paid marketing, but are there other organic avenues that you tested out, like maybe Facebook groups, or did you do any in-person networking, anything outside of your Facebook ads to help you get those first 500,000 subscribers?
Not for the first, but I did start to do that later. I would have done Facebook groups if I had known about their power. That'll be part of the launch plan for the future Scoops, using Facebook groups, not even like related Facebook groups, just like finding a Facebook group opportunity in a community where there isn't one right now, and using that to market the newsletter is a really smart thing. Like it could be as simple as, let's say Annapolis service business recommendations. And it could just basically like a Yelp or an Angie kind of thing, but it's a Facebook group with your trusted neighbors. It's like a Nextdoor, but it's moderated and it's valuable. And then you use that to promote the newsletter. Or same thing, cars for sale or boats for sale. Like just a way that any kind of group like that. And then also getting into active groups, like groups that you don't have. I've tried to buy Facebook groups, been shut down on all fronts there here in Annapolis, but that'll be part of the strategy in other future cities, is investing a little bit of money to buy a Facebook group, because that could be a huge boom. One of my favorite stories about the growth of Scoop is, like I said, we're 19,446 subscribers. I woke up one day to 600 new subscribers. And at the time, like even now, if I woke up to 600 new subscribers, I'd be like, what the heck happened? I wasn't doing anything. Like, where did we get shared? How did this happen? And so eventually I was digging around and I was like, what happened? And it was lucky that somebody used their referral code in a Facebook group. So this one woman had gotten 600 subscribers in a referral code overnight.
Wow.
And I was like, that's interesting. Let me reach out to her and ask her where she put it. So she put it in a Naval Academy parents Facebook group. We've got the Naval Academy here, about 3,800 students, 4,000 students, and their parents are much more involved than your average college parent. It's just something about Navy. They can't talk to the kids as much. People treat it differently. It's not your average college. Like, actually, one of their taglines is not college. And so their parents are just really into it. She's involved with the Academy, a program that we have here, and she just posted it there, and they went nuts with it. Like, basically, at that rate, like almost every parent signed up for it. There's 1,000 kids in each class. Hopefully each kid has 2 parents, so 2,000 people, 600 of them signed up. That's crazy, right? That's an amazing percentage. And so knowing that now, I'll try to leverage that in other cities, but I didn't do that in the beginning. I didn't do a referral program right away because they weren't built in. Now they're built into every email platform. So I'd say start with them from day one. But back when I started, you had to pay for them. I've ended up getting a Viral Loops lifetime subscription from AppSumo. Shout out AppSumo, they're great. And I did run up a referral program that way. So it cost less, but back when you had to pay $200 a month for it, it wouldn't have made sense because you need a lot of people to make a referral program work. Like everybody thinks, oh, newsletter, referral program, it's gonna be great because they saw the hustles, they saw Morning Brew. Referral program's like 20% of your subscribers. And that's not nothing, but it's not your silver bullet for growth by any means. And so unless it's free included in your thing, I wouldn't do it from the beginning, but now it is everywhere. So it basically doesn't even matter. That point's moot. But so, yeah, we got a referral program that's been good. I've written pretty extensively about this online, but basically the dirty little secret of referral programs is that the first milestone is the only one that matters because it's the only one that 80%, 90% of your people will ever get to. I always love to do this live on podcasts because now that I use Beehive, they have a really good way to do it. So I look at my referral program. Like I said, 19,446 subscribers. We have 2,000 of those subscribers who have referrals, and the average one has referred 2.46 people. So our first milestone is at 3 referrals. That means that our average referring reader hasn't even hit the first milestone. So the first one is the only one that you should think about. We have given out 417 people have gotten to the first one. How many people do you think have gotten to my second milestone, which is at 15 referrals?
7.
23. So you're pretty good on your guesses. Most people guess way too high. Our third milestone, which is at 25, only 11 people have gotten to it. So that's your dirty little secret of referral programs is only think about the first one. And so because of that, you want to make it automatic for yourself and ideally free. So for a local newsletter, there's a perfect one that I just recommend everybody would steal. Don't even think about it. Just do this one. A birthday shout out for your subscribers who get 3 referrals at the top of your newsletter every day. It's amazing for a couple of reasons. First, you get 3 referrals. That's, a lot of people do their first referral milestone at 1. I think you're cheating yourself if you do that. You can get away with making it 3. No one will ever complain, even if your average referrer doesn't get it like mine. So do that. And then also, it is a growth tactic in and of itself because I give you the option to do either your birthday shout out for yourself or somebody else. If you choose somebody else, you're definitely going to send it to them so that they know that you did it, or their friends will send it to them. Maybe they don't read actually. So now that you got a new subscriber there probably, or it'll get sent, hey, you pick yourself. Let's say you're Brian, I'm Ryan. You pick yourself as a birthday shout out. I'm really good friends with you. We have a Golf Buddies group chat. I text everybody like, hey, good. Look, everybody, like Brian's at the top of the Naptown Scoop today. And then half the guys in there are like, what's Naptown Scoop? And I send them my referral code again. Or you send them yours because you're faster than me. But it's a growth hack in and of itself. And then it can be automated. It can be totally free for you and it can be automated. And so I have a long thing about automating it, but it would basically you just tie it to a spreadsheet that you check every day for your thing, and Zapier watches make a form for your referral program. I have a long thing written about that. If anybody's listening to this and just finds me on Twitter and DMs me, I'll send it to them. We don't need to go into the nitty gritty here, but those are my little secrets of referral programs is only go for the first one. The second and third ones don't even matter like at all. And then make it free for yourself and easy to fulfill. So those are my big secrets.
If I remember, I think Morning Brew, they had part of their referral program was like you refer X amount of people, you get a sticker, and then you get like a coffee mug, and then you get a whatever. But I imagine for that, like now, what is it like if you've got even 10% of your 19,000 people, now you've got to send out like a butt ton of stickers, right? Like, and then now you got to do postage.
Yeah, you don't want to be packing stickers in an envelope all day. And at this point now, I'm actually going to figure out, I've stopped doing birthday shout outs it's harder to get referrals now in Annapolis because we've got so many people. We only have 41,000 people here in town, almost 20,000 readers. And there's population outside of the town too, probably about 120,000 that we can reach, but we're pretty great market penetration. And so it's getting really hard to get referrals. And so I've actually changed my first one to now be a membership in our private Facebook group, which is not going so hot right now. There's not a lot of activity happens. I really need a moderator to get in there and start drumming up conversation. But I'm actually going to start trying to sell our birthday shout outs at the top of the newsletter because now people want them. They're really excited to get them. That's also anecdotal evidence that I know the birthday shout out works is I'll see people around town. They're like, I'm only one away from my birthday shout out. Or they'll see me and they'll be like, why didn't I get mine this year? And I'm like, well, it's a one-time thing. You got it last year. Or they're like, man, I've missed it. Like I just got my third referral, but my birthday was last week and now I have to wait a whole year for this thing. But they really wanted it. And so now I'm like, what if I could sell those? Max 2 a day, $40 each one. Maybe it's like that people buy birthday shout outs like that on scoreboards at ball games. So
Yeah.
I'm like, let's try that. I haven't figured out a software to let me do that yet. Easy for me and limit it to 2 each day and make it automatic. But I think I'm kind of figuring that out. But again, quick math. We send 200 of these newsletters a day. We can do 2 of those. So that's possible for $16,000 in revenue. Even if you only sell half of them, it's basically money for nothing at that point. Just a little way to add a bit to the top line.
Yeah, that's free money right there. All right, so we're talking about a little bit of monetization here. I'm going to save the best for last. So I'm going to hop into logistics here first. What does the back end look like for running a local newsletter? Like, who are your people? Do you have a staff of writers? How do you put this all together?
So for the first 2 years, well, not entirely 2 years, but I was pretty much doing every single thing with the exception of social media. I delegated that pretty early. And then I delegated some sales stuff as well, but more of like cold calling, like basically got an account development representative, and then I would come in and help close deals. So those 2 things I delegated pretty early. I had this social media person, I think she started for me in the winter of 2020, which is only a few months after we started. So I knew I needed to have someone for that. And then I hired the sales rep in May of 2021. So just shy of a year in. I was doing everything up until that point. But now, fast forward to 4 years in, I'm just going to work my way through the office here. To my left is a head of sales. He's not in here today. He's actually got COVID. I don't know who gets COVID anymore, but unfortunately, he's at home today. Then we have 2 interns for the summer. One's social media, but they're both kind of everything. One does a lot of ad copywriting for us, and I hope to keep the ad copywriter one on afterwards in a full-time role so she can manage our social media, do ad copywriting, and basically be like a marketing wizard, jack of all trades kind of thing. Then we have a head of content editor. It's kind of a hybrid role that is part-time. All these people are part-time. I have one full-time operations person, started as an administrative assistant kind of role, but really transitioned into an operations role. So she manages my email and the general Naptown Scoop email. She's looking for tips that are coming in. She's the one that's compiling all of our sources or all of our stories from all of our sources and then putting them in a pile. And then that's when the editor will go in every day and say, yep, we're going to cover this. We're not going to cover that. We're going to cover this. We're not going to cover that. And then we have 2 writers that the editor will assign stories to. And that is the team.
Okay. And you're publishing every day during the week, right? Or is it 7 days a week, 5 days a week? What does that look like?
5 days a week. So there's some stuff that we can plan out in advance, but a lot of it is reactive to the news and events that are happening.
Right. Okay. And all your team is local to you, or is anybody remote?
The assistant lives in the Philippines, so fully remote, leveraging a little bit of offshore labor there. Definitely wouldn't be able to afford that here. The writers are remote, but they live in town. It's important for the writers to live in town because they got to know the personality of the town, but they've never been in the office because they don't need to be, and they're freelancers and they're part-time, and one of them has a family that she takes care of, so they don't need to be in the office. They don't want to be in the office. And then everybody else does work in here, but pretty flexibly. The editor's in here once every Monday. We have a content meeting. She's been in here a couple of days this week just because her childcare situation is different this week and she's got time and wants to work somewhere other than her house. Head of sales is in here pretty much every day, but is also doing a lot of other work that's not here every day. Like he's the commissioner of his volleyball league at his neighborhood. So he's like putting together tournament brackets over at his desk. But it's really cool to have everybody in the office every day, or pretty much every day, pretty much everybody. So many good ideas come from it. I'm very old school in that way. I love having an office.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's more and more these days, or obviously since COVID, a lot of that went by the wayside. So I agree with you. I'm kind of old school in that fashion too, where I love being around people, though I work totally remote, but everyone to me is on Zoom. But so how do you guys source your content? Like, do you just like surf around multiple sources and just, like you mentioned, your content manager kind of scrapes from different areas. What does that look like for the Scoop?
Yeah, we're just pretty much, I like the word surfing around, surfing pretty much everything. Anybody in town that's putting out any kind of content, basically ever, if you've put out one good press release, we'll still check your website every day because you might put out another one. So we probably check 50 to 60 websites every day, twice a day, just to get content for what we're doing. And we're just curating most of it. We are starting to do some more original content. Original content always does well for us. So that's fun. We're doing a lot more of that now, especially with the team growing. But it's just surfing around everywhere. In the beginning, that was 100% of the content gathering. And then now we've started to get, but you have to get to a certain level before you start doing that. And you also have to ask for it. You just, hey, do you have anything that we should write about? Send us an email. You start to build relationships with people in town that know what's happening. Like commercial real estate agents are great for telling you about the new businesses that are coming into town or the ones that are closing or big things like that. They're kind of my favorite source, if you will. But really, just in the beginning, you're surfing around everywhere, and then you start to build relationships, and people are starting to tell you things.
Yeah. Well, and you've been around long enough. People are kind of like, hey, this needs to be in the scoop. This story or maybe this upcoming event needs to be mentioned. And they reach out to you. It's like the content comes to you now.
Yeah, which makes it a lot easier. It's fun when the content comes to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome. So I want to start talking about maybe more of the fun part, if you will, the monetization of the scoop. This is what I'm most interested in. What does it look like? How did you start turning your first dollars? I know you mentioned you invested your own money into your startup costs, doing your advertising. It sounds like you hired pretty quickly. Did you have money coming in at that point? And how did you start making your first dollars? And how are you guys currently monetizing right now?
So making the first dollars and making the now dollars the same way, which is good. It's a simple business model. We are starting to think about expanding some things, but for the most part, it's advertising in the newsletter that makes all the money. We started doing that very early. Even I think I can't remember exactly how many subscribers I had. I've probably made up numbers and stories online that I've written, but it was a low number. It was somewhere less than 100 or around 100. Somebody reached out. They wanted to advertise because I had a link in there that you could advertise in there, just an email link to email me back. And so this web developer wanted to advertise. And I said, we only have this many people, but because of that, if you give me $500, then I'll give you 6 ads you can use at any point in the next 6 months. And he was like, great, that sounds fun to me. And he used them all at once. So he barely got any bang for his buck. And not that he would have gotten much more in 6 months, but that was the first money. And then I don't actually remember doing a thing like that again. I think it was just a lot of individual ads or like 4 packs of ads. And then I knew I wanted to get to selling multiple ads as soon as possible, though, like multiple month contracts. And so I remember we did a 3 month thing with somebody, and we did a 6 month thing, and then we started to do year-long things. And now we do 2 year contracts with people where basically for a 2 year, most people will do an ad every other week. Some people, we have 2 clients that like it every single week, but they're bigger, more successful. One of them is in real estate where presence like that matters. So yeah, that's how we made the first dollars. That's how we're still making our money. It's all pretty much advertising. I'm looking at a couple other avenues. Some of them are like actual things that'll bring money from different business units into the scoop. Like right now, I'm testing out selling a boat and kind of maybe thinking about doing a used boat brokerage. A little bit of a wild idea, but this is Annapolis and boats are part of the DNA here, so that could work. I want to do some more events that I think could be bigger. I want to do a physical publication that is just a once a year kind of thing that people would advertise in. Not talking about that one too much until I actually do it for reasons I can explain off the air. And then I don't know what you would actually call these, but I guess they're more like outside opportunities. We've kind of hinted about it a little bit. I've started a portable toilet rental business that I use the scoop to advertise and to get customers for. I want to start a local marketing agency where I give people the same kind of services that I use to grow Scoop. But yeah, for the most part, it's advertising supported. I've thought about, I mean, sometimes I do the math and I'm like, man, if everybody who was reading this paid $1 a month, that would be awesome. Or $2 a month. The problem is not everybody would. And I don't know. I've thought about going that way, but
Yeah.
I've thought about doing like a pay what you will kind of thing, pay what you want. But at the end of the day, advertising has just been the easiest. I remember a lot of people told me they'll never be able to sell advertising to local business owners. And I remember telling them all that they were wrong, and I've fortunately turned out to be right. So that's a good thing. There's always somebody who has money, and there's always somebody who wants to reach a local audience. So find the successful
Right.
service businesses and hit them up. Realtors always want to reach a local audience, and real estate is a marketing game. It's like a dating app. There's
Yep.
a million of them, and you've got to be the one. And so you're always needing to find new clients too, because it's not a repeat thing, or if it is, it's a very slow repeat cycle. So real estate agents always want to, doctors' offices, especially cosmetic ones that don't take insurance with really high expensive procedures, they're always looking to advertise. And then there's always there's probably a big company in your town that has 15 restaurants, and it'll be a small part of their marketing budget. The single mom and pop restaurant's never going to advertise with you, or probably not going to advertise with you. But there's a group in your town that will. There's always somebody with money.
Right, right. And so these ads, when you're selling these, it's all about the local exposure, right? Or do these ads come with an exclusive offer from the Scoop or for Scoop readers? Do these business owners ask you, like, how can I track my success with this outside of just asking, hey, did you hear about us in the Scoop?
Yeah, so we don't do anything sophisticated on tracking yet. I want to. There's a software called Call Tracking Metrics that you can put a little piece of code on your website, and then when somebody uses a certain link, it'll give them a specific phone number on your website that looks just like a regular Maryland phone number. But every time it's called, it's all tracked, and you can tell that this many people called from clicking on your Naptown Scoop link. I think I'm going to test that out with my own portable toilet thing first. But I want to do that, some better tracking. Right now, we don't have anything sophisticated. Some people do offers. Some people do, if you heard about us, like we have a vet. If you heard about us through the Scoop, then you get a free chew toy for your dog. It's an ice cream cone because it's the Scoop. So some people do things like that. But at the end of the day, it's not really sophisticated, but it is. If somebody runs an ad, we have a new company that is a stretching facility, and they do this offer for everybody. But on the days that they run with us, then they get a lot of calls. And so they're like, okay, well, that's probably working. Let's keep doing it. Remember when they opened,
Right.
we wrote a story about them, and they said, yeah, we want to offer all your readers a free stretch. And my head of content was like, do they know how many subscribers we have? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe we should check. So we called them back and we're like, hey, Colin, I love the idea of the free stretch. That's great. But just so you know, we have 19,000 readers and a 65% open rate or so. Like, that could be a lot of people. And he's like, nope, we offer it to everybody. Let's do it. And so we did it. We ran the story unpaid. When everybody opens a business, we always give them at least one. Like, it's just an announcement. We're the news thing. We have to do that. It doesn't really feel like, again, to me, it's like, it doesn't make any other sense to do it any other way. But sometimes my head of sales is like, why aren't you charging them for that? And I'm like, because they just opened. Like, that's what we do. We got to tell people what's happening, whether they pay us or not.
Yeah.
And if they like what we do, then they can pay us, and then they can continue to get coverage. So that's what happened here is they were like overwhelmed with phone calls, scheduling free stretches. And they were like, how do we get in here more? And I sent my sales guy over. He told them how it worked. And they signed a 2-year deal, like just easy, no negotiation. They were just like, we got so many freaking phone calls from this that we got to be in there every week or every other week for 2 years now. So
Wow.
that's kind of how that works sometimes.
So what does your pricing look like? How did you arrive at your pricing, and what are those numbers? I know it's probably variable based on the length of the contract, but how does that work?
Yeah. So the short answer is I just pulled them out of thin air. I did not know how pricing worked. I don't know where I heard this because I haven't found it online ever again, but somewhere along the line, I heard that Morning Brew was selling ads at a $70 CPM, which, if anybody's listening doesn't know what that is, cost per 1,000 impressions. And I was like, cool, that's my price now. And so I basically am still around there for our top ad, which is 150 words. The top of the newsletter includes a logo and a picture, and that's about $70 without any discounts. So that's like if you just buy one. But then the discounts start if you buy 12, which would be 6 months, basically, every other week. And then there's another discount at 24, and then another one at 48. And so nobody really ends up paying that full rate. And then it just goes down. Like our top ad, I think it's like 70. Our next one, I think, is like 55. And then it's like 45. And those are the only 3 different kinds we have. But yeah, I just pulled it out of thin air is the real answer. I know that's a high CPM, but also like nobody really does ads on CPMs anymore. Kind of nobody. You can't say that, but open rates are less accurate. But at this point, it's just like, whatever, the price is the price. And we're big enough that that's just it. I raise it a little bit every year, and that's the price is the price now. It's not really based on
Yeah.
anything. It's just we're going to go up a little bit every year, whether we get 5,000 new subscribers or 500.
And are you basing, this might be me being ignorant, but that rough $70 per CPM, are you basing that on your open rate? Are you basing that on subscribers? What does that look like?
Opens, yeah. Always been opens. Didn't make any sense to me. Again, just one of those things like I would never do it any other way. Why would I charge you for people that aren't reading your thing?
Right, exactly.
So I originally based it off of 50% open rate is the rate you're going to pay. And if you get less than that, we'll refund you the difference. And if you get more, we won't charge you. And I never one time ever actually refunded anybody. Mostly, I think, because we never went under 50%. But if we ever did and I offered it, nobody ever took us up on it. So, but they liked the idea that we would. I think that was a smart thing to do, but just a lucky thing I stumbled into.
Yeah. I know you said you put a link in your email. That was how you got your first advertiser. Have you ever had to do any outbound ad generation, or has it always been people are just, we know the scoop, we want to be in it?
No, it's been a good amount of outbound. Like my biggest client was outbound, and it was a hand-picked thing where I was like, I want him, and I don't know why.
Who's that? That sounds like there's a story there.
He's a real estate agent. He's the best real estate agent in town. He's actually the best, highest volume real estate agent in the state of Maryland. He's at Sotheby's, which is a really great brokerage, and he's in the top 1% of Sotheby's agents worldwide. So I was like, I want him. He's spending money everywhere. He's good looking guy. He's got the best looking houses. Like if he's in our thing, I don't know why, but I know it'll be good. And I turned out to be luckily right again. I get lucky a lot. And the moment that he started advertising, everybody wanted in. It was very much a validating moment. And so from that point on, it was mostly inbound. But we also like to handpick our advertisers because we like to do a certain quality of service. And so I keep looking over here because we've got a big list on the wall that we want to go after now, that we are actively going after outbound. And we still get some inbound. Like I would definitely count the StretchMed one as an inbound because basically they got a free ad, not a free ad, but they got their editorial coverage provided them such a big bump that they were like, hey, how do we get in there all the time? And so that still happens. And then there's some agencies that we work with that they will say, hey, we've got a thing from a client. Can we get a couple ads? And then a lot of it is just relationships now where it's, especially if it's an event thing, like we have big boat shows here every year. They come to us every year and they're like, hey, it's time to buy some more ads because we buy them every year. But that was, I think that was an inbound too. But yeah, pretty good mix of inbound and outbound.
Okay. Yeah. As Benjamin Franklin said, diligence is the mother of good luck. So maybe you've had some good luck, but it was not just because of your due diligence. So,
well, I always like the Seneca quote, luck is preparation times opportunity, I think is the exact quote, something like that.
I think that's right.
Which has now been translated a bunch of times. Like I think Ben Hogan, the golfer, said, the harder I worked, the luckier I got, stuff like that. But I always like the original, the Seneca quote, luck is preparation meets opportunity. Where it's like,
yeah, there you go.
I guess in terms of the opportunity or like being lucky about being right about that guy advertising it, we had the ability to sell him. He wanted to be in it. We gave him an exclusive agreement so that no other realtor could ever be in it. That made him really happy. And then that made everybody want to be in as well. But I guess it would only get us lucky if like the preparation, if the product was actually good and got a return for those people. So yeah. But anybody who says there's no luck involved is just completely a liar. There's always luck involved.
Yeah. And just to give people a taste, so these are advertisers that are paying you monthly to be in the newsletter. So like for this guy, he's the big whale. It sounds like he's the breadwinner of all your advertisers. What does he bring in for your business per month? It
is somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000 a year.
So a heck of a lucrative deal, and you can do, these ads can go for $500. They can go up to that huge range you just listed there. So yes, that's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah. So our clients, I don't actually know what our average one pays, but the revenue is going up every year and the number of clients is going down because the average one is paying, I think to guess, we have about 30,000 or 35 clients. And 200,000 divided by 35 is like 5,700 a year. So yeah, that's dragged up by people like him who are paying that large number and dragged down by people like, let's say the boat shows who are only buying like 4 ads a year but they're buying the same 4 ads every year. They're very consistent, and I love going to the shows, and I like the people who run them. So yeah, but our average client is paying a good amount. They're not a lot
Yeah.
of short-term relationships.
Right, right. And that's the key. And even the same in the marketing side of the business, we have a lot of I call them my legacy or my key clients who they come back year after year. They receive the same awesome service or better service every year, I like to think, and they pay for it. And each year the price rises a little bit to keep up with inflation and cost of doing business. But you have that core business, and then you slowly add in others here and there. It's a recipe for not a passive business, but a great way to just know that you have that money coming in.
Yeah, and I like the exclusive arrangements that I do because they kind of secure things a little bit more. Like, I am pretty sure that my top advertiser would absorb almost any price increase I give him. I have a very good friend who's a very successful marketing business person who sold his company for hundreds of millions of dollars, who said, I think you should double the price on the guy. I think he would absorb it because it's an exclusive arrangement and he knows, or if he ever tried to wiggle out of it or something, I could say, if you give this up right now, you're never getting back in. Never. Not because I'm sadistic, but because I'm going to sign an exclusive agreement with someone else and they're never going to give it up because you have the target on your back. You are the top of the heap. And if somebody had the chance to unseat you from this throne of being the only advertiser in Nowtown Scoop, they would do it in a heartbeat and they would pay double what you're paying. And so I think he would absorb anything there.
Someone's going to pay it. Is it going to be you or not?
Yeah, somebody will pay it. I love you. We're friends now. We've started, I just texted him today. I'm actually looking at a house in town that he has listed, which is a weird house for him to have listed. It's $625,000 and usually his average house is 2.5. And I've helped him sell all the way up to 12. So I don't know why he's listed this house. It's probably just like the son or daughter of a client and he's doing it as a favor. But I was looking at it. I was like, that makes it easy. I texted him and he's like, yeah, here's a lockbox code. Just go on over. So we become friends and I love that. But I also know that our relationship will come to an end at some point. All business relationships do. Doesn't mean it's going to be a bad end. It's just, it will come to an end. And someday we'll have to go get a new client there, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. All right, awesome. Well, I want to make sure we honor your time here. I've just one more question for you here, a couple more actually. We've talked about all the great things about running a newsletter. What are the struggles, or are there any sort of like legal things that somebody who wants to start and run a local newsletter business needs to be aware of?
Legal things? Nobody's ever asked me that before.
Well, legal, or even just some of the toughest things you've run into since starting your business.
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that before. I would say legal things first is an easy answer. Just like, don't write mean things about people. Keep it super positive. And when I say don't write mean things, I mean even like slightly. I've had some people, one time I wrote a story about, there was a really cool condo that was for sale. It's an old firehouse converted into a condo, but it was decorated kind of weird. And I wrote that it wasn't my cup of tea, but some nice change, like some quick changes, and it would be great. And the realtor called me, the owner of the real estate brokerage called me, and the husband of the couple called me. And the listing agent was nice. The owner of the brokerage was not so nice, but also courteous and professional, but very firm. The owner of the condo screamed at me and he threatened to sue me and like basically sent things that said he was going to. And
what?
That is when I called my attorney and was like, what do I do here? And also, do I need insurance for this? Like, what do I have to do to protect against this? So now I have publisher's liability insurance. I wouldn't say that's super necessary from day one, but it's also not that expensive. So if you're a conservative person, it might be worth it. Just talk to your insurance person and they can connect you with someone who can do it. But yeah, in terms of legal things, I'd say just don't write mean things about people. Don't disparage people's stuff, especially not their real estate listings. Because he was like, I'm going to sue you for damages because this is going to destroy the value of the home. And I was like, well, first of all, it's not, because it wasn't that bad. And I just didn't like your decorations. That's easy. You take them out. It's not going to damage the value of your home. And also, by the way, you're welcome for sending 600 people to your listing today. And I noticed it's under contract, by the way. So
yeah. So maybe I should take a commission.
I actually said that. I was like, I think you should be sending me a commission check instead of a cease and desist. And that kind of ended the conversation because I probably knew I was right. Because I was like, there's no way it's damaging the value of your house. Like, I think we actually sold it. Your office should, like I said, the listing agent was really nice. The listing agent actually asked me about, like, She's like, can I advertise? Like, I liked having my listing in your thing. And I was like, sadly, we have an exclusive agreement, so you can't, but great. But then she was like, also though, my boss is a little bit pissed. So yeah, in terms of that, just don't write mean things. Don't be that. This works better as a positive thing anyway. People like positive things. The silly example I always like to use is Monsters, Inc. You have kids, you've definitely showed them to this movie, and you've probably seen it yourself. The screams, they power the whole city with monsters scaring kids and screaming. But then they figure out at the end of the movie that laughter is like 5 times more powerful than screams or something. And so positivity is always better than negativity. The whole if it bleeds, it leads thing, that doesn't work in practice. Like, obviously, the legacy media has done that forever, but nobody's nobody's finding the legacy media publishers on the street and asking them for selfies and like wanting them to invite them to their weddings and hang out with them at parties and then just reading their thing all the time. Like, very few people are going to read my thing and be pissed off by anything inside of it. They're going to read it and be like, oh, that's cool. I can go see my favorite band this weekend. That's a happy thing. Now I like Naptown Scoop because they told me that. The next week they tell me a cool thing I can do with my kids. I like Naptown Scoop. They told me that. Naptown Scoop is advertising a vet. My puppy's sick. The vet fixed my puppy. Now I like Naptown Scoop because they saved my puppy's life. Like, it's all positive stuff. In terms of the hardest thing, this is not a legal thing at all. It's a grind. It's a daily content grind. We do every day. In the beginning, we did every other day. And the problem is you can't really schedule a lot of it out in advance unless you're doing original content, like how to get on the water without a boat in Annapolis. And you have a story of how you could rent a boat or where you could charter a boat or get on a paddleboard or stuff like that. We did that recently. It was a great piece of content. And you can schedule that out and write it in advance. But most of the things that you're covering in this business are reactive. And so it's a grind. I actually still haven't gone on vacation without writing the newsletter or editing the newsletter or assigning the stories to the writers in the 4 years we've been doing this. I now have my editor and my goal. I'm going away in a month to Newport, Rhode Island. And so I don't want to be working. And that'll be the first trip in 4 years where I'm just going to completely check out and say, editor, I'm completely trusting you. This is your job. I trust you. I guess I accidentally did that on the 3rd of July, which is 6 days ago from when we're recording this. That was the first time in Naptown Scoop history that an email got sent that I had not even looked at. We had not planned to do a 4th of July email, but my editor wanted to do one. And so she did. And we have a really good 3rd of July fireworks show. And so nice. I had a few drinks at that and was with my girlfriend and then just woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, shoot, sent an email that I didn't look at. I hope it was good. And I don't know if this was a smart thing to do or a dumb thing to do, but I actually just opened it and deleted it and didn't even read it. And it was kind of like, I'm going to hear if anything went wrong, but I didn't hear anything. And so now that's like the first level of trust for the editor. But yeah, that's the hardest thing. It's a daily grind. It's not something like the toilet is a great business, the portable toilet rental. You're just doing one thing. You got to get customers for your toilet. That's it. And then you got to deliver it and you got to clean it and you got to keep it clean during the event and then you got to pick it up. It's very simple business. This constantly reacting to things is different every day. And I also call this like a 2-part business. I don't like 2-part businesses and I don't want to do any more of them. You need to get newsletter subscribers and you need to get advertisers to make money. So you can't have one without the other. For the toilet thing, I just need to get customers, just need rentals. That's it. Like a 1-part business. It's a simple one. I like it a lot better than the 2-part. But that's not to say this can't be a great business. We talked about this off the air a little bit. I am actually licensing my brand and my IP and the style guide and offering services on the back end of that to make this act sort of like a franchise, but it will definitely not be a franchise. I'm including that for legal reasons. It's a great business and I'm talking about the value of it in podcasts like this pretty much every week now. I've got another one in an hour. I don't want to say that to scare anybody away. It's still a great business and I'm still teaching a lot of people how to do it and operating
that's awesome.
One myself with potential to operate multiple here in the next couple months.
Right. It's an incredibly lucrative business when you do it right, you commit to it, and you stay on top of it, right? And then as you grow it, much like many other businesses, you can start hiring trusted people around you to start doing the work, and ideally doing it better than you can do it yourself. And then you can start stepping back. Like when you take your trip, you'll be able to step back and know that the business is okay. It's not going to implode. Nothing's going to blow up in your face, and you got people handling it. So I think that's the natural journey.
Yeah, I wish it took me less than 4 years to figure that out. It's taken me a very long time to figure out how to delegate. And I'm lucky that I'm doing it now at this age. I'm 27. I'm learning this now. how dangerous and good at business will I be by 40? Hopefully pretty excellent, but it still felt like a long time. It was a lot of hard lessons learned to get to this point. A lot of family vacations where I wanted to be having a good time, but it was having to do this. Or like 2 years ago, my laptop broke and we were 2.5, 3 hours away from the nearest Apple store. And I thought I was going to have to drive all the way there and miss basically a full day of vacation to get a new one. Luckily, my brother-in-law let me use his and wrote the scoop on that all week. That's another good idea to back up all your stuff and not do it or do everything on the cloud.
Hot tip.
They have better backups than you can. And I bought a new laptop from his computer and picked it up on my drive home from vacation. And then within 20 minutes, the backup was downloaded and it was the same old computer, just with new hardware. So yeah.
All right.
That is the hardest thing about it. It's a daily content grind. And my biggest and best piece of advice would be hire help as soon as possible. That's probably my biggest advice for almost any business. I feel like there's so many people, and I fell into this trap where I felt like it had to be me. No one's going to do it as well as me, or I'm just not ready to delegate that yet. Nope, just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. That's right. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end it. We'll get this plane landed and say, just do it. Kind of like Nike, right? Just do it.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. Just follow it. All right, Ryan, how can our listeners get a hold of you? What's the best place to check you out? What's the best place to contact you?
So yeah, if you like local newsletters or you like hearing about it, I tweet. That's basically all I tweet about, although now I've started to tweet about toilets. So I'm at life_of_scoop, really leaning into the Scoop brand fully. I also have a newsletter where I only write about the local newsletters, but also sort of about the toilets because it is very tied in with the local newsletters now. So local newsletters and toilets, that's all you can find about me online. And that's at lifeofscoop.beehive.com. If you're like, I just want to jump straight in, I do a little 5-day starter kit to get a local newsletter started at lifeofscoop.co. But really, I'm pretty close to figuring out, and actually by the time this airs in a couple weeks, I'll probably have it figured out, a licensing agreement where if somebody wants to do this in their town, then basically we'll do it as a Scoop under the same brand and have learn or not make all the mistakes that I made. It's basically going to be like the 5-day starter kit that I have on absolute steroids, where instead of telling you how to do it, it's just like a done for you. Okay, you want to do it in your town? Let's do all the research, figure out if your town actually works. Okay, cool, it does. Here's the website. Here's the back end. Here's all the sources that you should be checking every day. If we have also I think I'm going to have a VA assigned to pretty much every one of these things. So it's like, you have to check the sources. We're just going to give you all the things every day. We're going to manage the Beehive account for you because that's my favorite one to use for this. We're going to make the template for you. We're going to manage the ad inventory. And so if that's something that's interesting like that done for you, I just want the benefits of selling the ads or making the money from the ads, being the rock star that I get to be when my face is on this thing every day, and then making some money from this, then hit me up on Twitter or the newsletter there and just respond to that, because that's something we're digging into here pretty soon. We're going to have our first one of those agreements signed to get another Scoop going. Been a long time coming.
Awesome. Yeah, so that sounds like a newsletter business in a box almost.
Pretty much, yeah. But also with back-end support, especially in the early days, it'll be a lot of me support to make sure that it goes really well for anybody who's going to partner with us on this. But it's not an equity partnership kind of thing. It's just a fee-based thing. Although I am also interested, if anybody does want to do equity partnerships, then I'm very into that as well because I like owning things.
Yeah, who doesn't? There you go. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Be positive, just do the dang thing, and hit up Ryan to see if you want a newsletter business in a box. He'll hook you up, and heck, you might even get some ownership and equity together. So, Ryan, this has been an awesome, awesome episode. A real pleasure having you on. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. It's been tons of fun.
All right, let's hear it for Ryan. I think Ryan did an amazing job of exposing us to the newsletter industry and how he has carved out his specific niche, keeping it local to his local area. And you even heard at the end there how he's starting to license out his product, his IP, the ability to get a business in a box, a newsletter business in a box, where this can be applied in any city or any town across the country. And if there's one thought that I'd like to leave us with that Ryan shared at the end of the episode, he was saying to make sure you're being positive in what you're writing in your newsletters, always staying upbeat, because negativity leads a lot of the way these days, but it doesn't make anyone feel any better. It doesn't make you feel good. And I want to apply this to entrepreneurship, where staying positive can be difficult, but it's absolutely necessary. You're going to have up weeks, you're going to have down weeks, you're going to have great days, you're going to have horrible days. But at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you got to do everything you can to stay positive and keep moving your ball forward. So a big thank you to Ryan for joining us today and sharing his knowledge. Another big thank you to our sponsors for helping us keep this thing going. And finally, a big thank you to you, our listener, for listening to us today and for being loyal and checking out some more of our podcasts. We appreciate you more than you can know. I do have a couple of quick favors before we sign off. Number one, if you'd be willing to and you love this episode, please text your friend, your mom, your dad, your family, whoever it is. Let them know that you thought this episode was awesome and they could think it is too. Shoot them a link to this episode on your favorite pod player. And number two, if you haven't already, check out our free business course at millionaireuniversity.com/training. If you haven't hopped into the entrepreneurial world, or maybe you just did and you still need a few pointers, check out that free course. We'll get you set up and moving ASAP. So thank you all again. This is Brian Guerin signing off. I cannot wait to see you on the next episode of the Millionaire University podcast. I hope you all go out and crush it today.